Hi, everybody. I'm here speaking to two people that run cons in England. And my hope is that what we will be discussing and chatting about is their experiences as uh, GMs who've been willing to take up that mantle at a convention. I'm very shy, so I don't know if I could ever do it. I don't have even experience at cons because that's how kind of reserved I am, is that I don't really like the idea of crowds, but I'm open. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who do go and would like to know some of the ins and outs, the pros and cons of going to a con as a GM, either as with lots of experience or just wanting to play something with different people. But I think that it requires, to my understanding, it requires a certain amount of knowledge and a certain amount of of willingness for the surprise. So
Hmm.
it's not particular to the UK, but both of these people are in the UK. So, Aaron, can you just tell us a little bit about kind of your experience and and just kind of a general broad stroke of how perhaps you got into it?
Can do, yeah, certainly. So I have been gaming for coming up to 40 years, but I admit I only got into convention GMing maybe 10, 15 years ago. By that, I don't mean the small society conventions, which I always attended, but they were like an extended version of my own gaming group. But yeah, I very much got into even the UK Games Expo. So that's the biggest one we have over here in the UK on that close time frame. So I've always been a GM. I admit it therefore took me time to think I'm ready for this, but I suspect there are a lot of people that don't worry about that. They just go for it. But it took me a while to think, no, I am ready to have somebody charge to play in my game. I think that weighed a bit heavily on my soul. It's not that much. Like, an extra 5, 6 extra pounds above your ticket, but it weighed a bit heavily on me to think, yeah, I now have to be good. I now have to be at least passably good. I have to be consistent enough as a GM, as you say, for anybody that might turn up, not just my friends, not just people that know me. And I did need to develop a bit of confidence, I think, to do that. But I would say if you are confident enough with GMing and you're okay with people, it's probably not as big a jump as I might have made it sound. But yeah, I needed to get over it too, maybe like yourself. The crowds for me don't worry me. But interestingly, maybe strangers aren't something that I'm as comfortable with. But years ago, I took a job as a trainer, an office based trainer, to get over that. And GMing helps me do that too. I find other people much easier to deal with as a GM than I do a player. So once I got in, I think I might have looked back and said, what was I thinking about? This is actually better.
Well, um, thank you. I mean it's I find it fascinating that we have that similar uh, kind of feeling around say the unknown, and yet jumping into it is actually really rewarding. And I
Hmm.
like the fact that for you it was intentional. Bruce, I know that we've kind of briefly talked about it, or I know of it, that you do certain things that require a public speaking and have led in that to a certain extent. And so maybe you can speak about that a little bit later, but how maybe one informed the other, but how did you get into uh, cons and assisting? What's your experience? And basically the same as Aaron.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I've been probably gaming for about 25 years on and off with role playing. Really started off with university days, picking up with group students, and did the smaller conventions as well, because there was local ones. then I kind of fell out of love with RPGs for a period. But it was probably about the last, I would say, maybe a year before lockdown kicked in. But after lockdown, I really kind of started doing a lot more of the convention scenes and then got myself more into it. Partly was to push to get more experience meeting up with people at gaming. And the second reason was I had been a player at some of these conventions and I wasn't kind of enjoying some of the games themselves. Not because of the bad GMs, I just felt that there was something that there should be more. I'm expecting more from this game and I would like to get more. So I started running, offering to run games. And that was a quite before I started off nerve-wracking because I was like, well, just because I want to run this game, does that mean people want to play in this game? And that was a big nervous bit. But the more and more I developed into it, I got more into that. The second point was there were a couple of things I was interested in, and I wanted to see if I could offer them to other people to see if there was interest from it. So there was a couple of games like Tales of the Old West. I thought, well, nobody's trying this, nobody's playing this style of game. Maybe I'll offer it and see. Let's get an idea. Maybe there is an interest in this because I had asked about promoting that game for the designers, and it turned out I learned a few things that there is a genuine interest. I think my favorite line when I ran it was, "It's a Western and it's not weird," which was the best line from I ever got from a player back onto it. So it's been really, really good to get into that. And the more and more, especially the last 2 years, I just felt there's a lot more opportunity and a lot more confidence being a game master for strangers as well. The one thing I will certainly say is the way I do it is a lot of people say, you shouldn't follow the rules. You can make up the rules as you go along as a games master. But when I started off, I created some of my own personal rules, and that helped me build that confidence up. If I followed these things in the gaming, I would feel that I'm getting off to a good start when the gaming with
so,
players.
so were those kind of rules something that were say rules that were for yourself that were kind of internalized, or were they things that actually were mechanical to the game?
They were more for myself. So a bit like what Aaron said, in the UK, some of the conventions, and I was conscious of, people were paying on top of their entry fee to go into the convention, an additional fee per player to sit at a table for probably between 3 to 4 hours to play in a game, whether they're paying about £3 to £6, you still felt you wanted to give them a good run for their money.
Mm.
Because one of the things I realized is I'm going there. It's not just me as a games master. I'm going there as mentally I realized I'm going there not just myself as a game master, but I'm going there representing this game. I'm not associated directly. I'm not getting rewards or perks from any of the publishers or the companies from this game, but I am representing that game. And most importantly, I'm representing the convention. I'm technically a sort of a specialist volunteer, you could probably say, because I'm giving up my personal time not to walk around the shows or trade shows and spending the money. I'm offering my time to sit at a table to give players a form of entertainment at the
Yeah.
table.
I, it, Thank you. Of course, it spurs on so many questions from both of you. Let me just give you both an idea of kind of my background. Um, I I received my first, I guess, D&D book when I was 12 in 77, and that was Chainmail. And so in 78, I started playing D&D. So I don't know how many years that is, but it's a fair bit, about 40, 45, 48, something like that. And so I spent a lot of time focusing on D&D and playing D&D, AD&D, and then the second edition. And then I started to look at a whole bunch of different ones, but never played. I played D&D, but I never played. But so I bought GURPS, never played it. Bought the Prisoner expansion, never played it, but loved looking at the double map and everything. That was fantastic and really spurred my imagination. Middle Earth role playing. I remember looking at the art direction and the cities and how wonderful that design was in MERP. And for me, it's all aesthetics. Like when I say I'm a reluctant artsy, I really have a lot of art inspiration and a view to art. So I also got into Harn, never played it, made characters for it, but Harn was really crunchy. But what I loved about it was the detail of the castles and the imagery and the high detail. So there were so many of these games that were emerging, and then Shadowrun came out. So I would purchase these other games as I was buying, almost every second edition thing that came out, not realizing the true differentiation. And I grew up during the Satanic Panic, and so I got rid of books that are worth way too much money. We will not talk about Magic the Gathering because I had 3 Black Lotuses and sold them and everything else for, I think it was $750 to pay for my rent at the time. Now I could have paid for a lot of rent, but probably could have bought a couple of houses. So I've been playing for a while, but my real experience with playing with strangers came pre-COVID, when I was living in a city and I was fed up. I think pretty much everybody knows that I'm a priest, an Anglican priest, so I'm married, and I wanted to get out of the house, and I started playing Star Wars miniatures, and then got fed up with that. It was getting bloated, and 5th edition was there. I had heard that it was out, but I was like, oh, I'm done and dusted with all of that. And then I was invited to a table, and I realized if I start role playing again, I love it so much that I won't stop. And that's actually how I got to play with strangers, is I dumped Star Wars miniatures and started playing 5th edition. And then my wife joined me, and we basically played with these strangers that ended up becoming really close friends over, I would say, about 4 or 5 years. And when we moved here to a rural part of the area of Canada, I would travel an hour and a half to go and see them. And after 2 accidents with skunks and raccoons that totally leveled the front part of my vehicle, I realized that if I get hit again, my insurance is going to go up. And so I retreated and started watching things online. And that was my way of learning the craft of modern gaming. So Bruce had spoken about kind of, and so would you, Aaron, about the responsibility. And even though it's not the most important aspect, these individuals are paying to play. And so there's a sense of responsibility. So maybe some people who are watching this are kind of asking themselves, okay, do either of you in the cons that you go to, do you get paid? Do you get the money that's collected around the table, depending on how many people do you get any type of compensation for running a game? I know that in the friendly local game shop that I played in, that the GM got, I think, 5% discount or 10% discount on items. So are there any perks? Is there anything that goes along with being a GM at a con? Aaron?
Usually it's the day you're running, you get in for free. That's what you're usually getting. So you can run in the afternoon, for example, and then you can have the morning and the evening to yourself. And I'm okay with that. That suits me. I don't need any more than that. I think what you're talking about with that merchandising, the shop is trying to sell something, and maybe you're running that for them. But with the con, you're normally running a game that you want to run rather than running something they want you to run, although you can get involved in running for publishers. That is a perfectly reasonable thing to do, but that would be separate. You'd have a deal with them that you're doing it for. So with the con, usually the only thing you get is the entry for free, although they might give you a badge, or they might give you money off on the t-shirt for the con or something, you know, just a nicety like that. But I wouldn't expect to be remunerated other than just being part of the convention.
Okay. Bruce, have you have the similar experience?
I mean, I would say exactly the same. You're most likely going to get the entry in for it, and that will save you some money in your pocket. Well, okay, you think you're saving money in your pocket, but remember, there are stalls downstairs, and you're going to be spending money on those stalls. So
Yeah.
in a way, you're not really saving money, but you are giving up a bit of time and into it. You might get, as I say, some thank you gifts. It depends how many games you're offering. You may get additional perks. So some things could be you might get food vouchers for the day, which means you're not paying for your lunch so you can go up to one of the stores. Oh, you're selling a burger. Here's my food voucher for that. That could be an additional thing. I would say you might get a little free gifts. As I said, the badges seems to be a UK Games Expo thing, which I quite like the badges at the moment. I think they've only just appeared. But if you're at some place like Tabletop Scotland, which I actually should add, we were talking about players paying. Tabletop Scotland is probably one of the few venues there you do not pay on top of your entry to the convention. If you sign up for a role-playing game, you're not paying an additional fee to that. But you, as a games master, and what they're trying to do is so you can identify who the game master is, you'll get a T-shirt, which is distinguished from the regular volunteers T-shirts.
Oh, neat.
With it. So, yeah. So that is the other thing. Or my favorite bit is their con. If you do enough games, you'll get a mug, and that'll give you money off for your cup of tea, and you need your cup of tea when you're running games like a UK
So
convention.
so in England, if you bring your mug, you get free tea.
Well, this year's mug that you volunteered for at that particular
Okay.
convention.
Okay. So before we started recording, you were talking about times and time slots of games and running games. Now, I guess this is pertinent also to those who are players who are there on a Sunday afternoon. I imagine that now I don't know how a Friday evening works, if there are games on a Friday evening. But I imagine that all day Saturday there's stuff going on, and then you have Sunday. What are kind of your peak crazy hours? How do people come to the table? Do they just show up? Do they pre-register? How? And about this Sunday afternoon slot, you were mentioning that things close down. So how do you get a table together, and what are kind of the pros and cons of timing?
We start, Bruce, and then you do that, and then I'll talk about Sunday afternoon because that's my thing.
Yeah, I'll leave the final slot of a gaming session, but I would say your popular times, if you're looking at when you're running, your first, regardless of when the convention is starting, your morning slot could be a bit challenging because that first slot is people just coming in, but they might just want to go straight to the show rather than sit down and play a game. So that one's quite quieter. It seems to be more the afternoon and sometimes the evening as well slots are the more popular ones, because your afternoon slot is people have probably seen what they wanted to see at the convention in the morning, and they're probably either just waiting to go home and try to kill a bit of time. So they've agreed to play in your game. Evenings definitely handy because the convention, when they've got the stalls and the trade always open, they close at dinner time. So there will be and the way that most conventions will happen is they'll allow people an hour or an hour and a half to have their dinner, and then they have a final slot open up from it. Now, you mentioned when do players try and get into these games? Most cases in conventions, you can pre-book before you go to the convention because there'll be an RPG section and you'll see a list of it, and you can even read a quick description of what the game is, and you can book online. And that's great for the convention holders because they're getting the money in advance from that point. But if you don't book, or maybe you just turned up, there is a good chance you can just go to the desk and find out a game, because sometimes, unfortunately, life does happen. People might have booked, but something else has occurred during on the day or that, and they've had to cancel, and they might have opened up space for a game. So if you're like, it's Friday evening, but we're going to have to stay overnight for any reason, we'll try and see if we can get into a game for it. You can take your chance with that. And plus, there's always a thing called Games on Demand, which they don't take bookings online. So that's like more of a 2-hour slot where you can probably sign up, and a Games Master will offer multiple games for it.
Now, sorry to interrupt, but does that mean that they pay less, or is that kind of still the standard pricing that they have for the con?
For the Games on Demand, because they tend to be a half that, if it is a paying one, it tends to be half the amount I've seen. So the example is if you're paying £3 for a game slot for a full session, because you're only playing half, you're paying about £1.50. But again, you don't know what the game is, and you don't know who the GM is. They'll probably offer you about 4 or 5 games, and you've got to pick one within that time you sit down at the table with whoever you're with, and you're straight off the bat and playing that game.
Aaron? Sunday.
So your Clever convention will create a number of games equal to the demand that they reckon they're going to get. So if you are running a 3-day, there's fewer people come on a Friday, so they'll run fewer games because they expect the audience to be lower. Most people come at the weekend, they come straight away on the Saturday. So the Sunday is a bit quieter, because if you can only come for one day, you've usually come for the Saturday. Very few people that just come for the Sunday. And the problem with the Sunday over and above the Friday is that it's tailing off. So you can still have fewer people on the Friday, but still have a big experience because everybody's just setting up. So they all want to be here. All the traders want to be here. Anybody offering something wants to be there on the Friday still. So everybody's there on a Friday, but they tone it down because of a reduced audience, because it's not the weekend. Saturday goes crazy.
So Friday is setting up, so it can get
be
busy.
But it might be a half day, only opening from 12 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Or it might just be that they offer less as overall. Okay. The convention offers less overall because there are some people that are just at work or their kids are at school. So there's no point offering everything on the Friday because you know the audience isn't just going to be as big. So then Saturday really kicks off, and they'll book loads of slots of everything for a Saturday. Now, the bigger the convention, the more likely they are to do 100% online booking up front. The smaller the convention, I think, the more likely they are to do partial online booking, some booking on the day, so maybe 50-50. Half the seats are online, pre-bookable, half the seats on the day, because they want to keep it fair, whereas in a big convention, you don't have to be fair because you've got lots and lots and lots and lots of people and lots of games. So Saturday takes care of itself. Everybody's there. Everybody wants to do everything. Sunday, people are starting to look to go home. I've got a train to catch, so I'm only here for Sunday morning. I don't want to pay for a hotel on Sunday night to be here on Monday because I'm going to be bored or my friends have gone. Even the traders start to pack up on halfway through Sunday afternoon or halfway through Sunday. So you can tell that the convention starts to wind down already, even though the Sunday isn't over. As people decide that they've seen what they wanted or they've done what they can and off they go. So there is the strange slot at the end of the convention, the final slot on the Sunday, whereby there are people who still want a game. Hopefully the con has said, I've judged the audience level, so I'll only book in enough games so there aren't too many games for the audience I'm expecting. But I think it's very noticeable how different conventions deal with that final slot and what they think of it. I think a shorter convention, it means more to them. If you've only got 4 slots, say set 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, it's a quarter of your gaming slots. So you know people are probably going to be there. But a big convention where it's been 3 on a Friday, 3 on a Saturday, 2 on a Sunday, it's only 1/8 of your total games. They can afford to not care as much about it. And in the biggest convention that I go to, which is the Games Expo, I've noticed that there is a bad vibe to the final slot now. The staff are tidying up the convention around you. They're tidying the tables. They're removing the banners. There's fewer games. So if you're in a big room that used to have 6 games running in the Saturday, you might be the only GM running. So you're running very much in a situation that, I don't know if this works in Canada, but for me as a Brit, it very much feels like last orders have been called in the pub and the staff are tidying up and taking the drinks away, the glasses away, and they're eyeing you up because they want to go home and you're in the way. And I think that's such a shame because people have still paid their money for that slot. But the vibe can be bad. And I've been having this conversation online with Bruce and other people about, if I still want to run in that, how can I rescue that slot? I now think there are certain types of game you cannot run in that slot because the atmosphere in the room is lower. So the energy level is lower.
So what type of games would be like an atmosphere sink where it would just kind of take the breath out of a game? Would it be something like Alien, or would it be like a Dragonbane or a fantasy game or Cthulhu?
Think of it more the other way around. You've got a space to fill. So in a Saturday afternoon game where there's lots of energy in the room, then the people will pick up on that. They have to talk slightly louder so they can be heard, which picks up their whole energy level. There's general just a buzz and a vibe, and I've just bought this at a trader and it's amazing. I want to talk about it. So the whole vibe is up. So you don't have to do the icebreaker, the warm-up on a Saturday afternoon because people are already warmed up. On a Sunday, if you need to spend time explaining how the game works, explaining the rules, going through the background when the vibe is already low and everything's worn down, then you're further away from the exciting part of the gaming. Now, getting to the game is a thing that we can talk about anyway, because that's a skill anyway. You want to get to the game as fast as you can. But on the Sunday, the burden is higher. On the Sunday afternoon, the burden is higher. I think you need a game that people can play. The background is based on their own assumptions, so you don't have to explain anything. The rules are really simple, and you just fire in with a problem straight away. Your house is on fire. What do? You're right in there. There's no, you already know what your house is. You know what fire is, and you know that you're a person that has to deal with it. Off you go. You've just got to go in harder, faster, and you've got to fill the energy gap a lot more yourself on that Sunday afternoon. So it's a harder task. And it's a shame, like I say, because people have paid the same amount of money.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
Would you be more inclined to choose a game that people are interested in playing because everybody knows the game, and so it's kind of like people just want to play something that they know with different people, as opposed to say playing a game that has just been released or people don't really maybe know the rules for? Is that a consideration?
I think that's reasonable, and I'll pass that to Bruce because it was his suggestion to me. So I'll leave that to him. I
Oh,
will just say
I didn't
though,
hear that.
I honestly believe that I think even despite that, I think you've still got to get into the game harder and faster. So I would say I'll let Bruce tackle that, but I think there's still a problem about that energy gap that you've got to cross, even despite it. But yeah, that was Bruce's suggestion to me. So I pass it back to him.
Bruce.
Oh, great, great. Is there a 50-50? Can I phone a friend? Can I do any of that? But I think I agree the points with that. What I would call, because we're talking about it Sunday afternoon, what we're really talking about is that final slot at a gaming convention when things are packed
So,
and most
just
people are in that mind going home.
so just to clarify, and sorry to interrupt, but what time are we talking about?
You're really talking about the last slot. So,
So
on,
what is that time? What does that look like in real time? Is
Two
that
till
2 to
six,
so
3 till
let-
7.
yeah,
Oh,
I would say
wow.
yeah, three
Oh,
to six is
ooh,
and you're generally find that trade show is usually packed up and they've thrown people out by what, maybe four, half four, and then
ooh,
that's where all the unpacking goes on, and the volunteers who have been working on the trade halls start taking down stuff and helping the traders leave because I believe they need to leave it. They can't leave early. They shouldn't be leaving early, but they
mm,
will start because they know from a trade stall perspective this is the time where I get to talk to people and now I can write down maybe something so I'm not carrying so much back with me. I'm doing a bit of a knockdown. There is sort of an advantage with that time from it. But if you're wanting to get what's the latest, forget looking at that time because it's already sold. It was sold
yeah,
on the first day of the convention
yeah, yeah.
from it. But with things like UK Games Expo, Tabletop Scotland, Aircon, that can lead up to because you're still gaming past that lockout time up to probably let's say 5 or 6 o'clock, and things are still happening. The big question is who's staying behind. So if it is something like
Mm,
UK Games Expo, because it's out in an area, a lot of people who are still staying because maybe they are traveling back the next day because they can't leave on the same day. Or my favorite one is they have a flight, but that flight is 9 o'clock to get them
Mhm.
back. And they don't want to sit 3 or 4 hours doing nothing. So that
Mhm.
time slot, you're taking them up to that time from it. So going back to what I was saying, how do you choose what game is there? What's game that's going to excite them? And I agree with the point he's making. You've got a lot on your shoulders because this is like you're dealing with a lot of people who have already been around. They're already tired. They're a bit exhausted. You yourself as a games master as well. This is probably your last lot. You've probably ran about 3 or 4 games over the weekend, and you've been talking to people, engaging people over that period. You're going to feel that exhaustion yourself, and you're going to try and keep it going. Trying not to rely on the energy drink problem. So you want to pick
mm,
a game that does work and one that you know will get people into it. So sometimes it is better to fall onto what I would call like the top three or the classics. Well, to me, the top will be probably a Dungeons and Dragons game because people know fantasy, they can get into it. However, you may shock Hasbro, but not everybody likes Dungeons and Dragons. They like to play something else, and that's probably got Douglas Band right by Army of Lawyers on the channel. But people enjoy other games. So, because Call of Cthulhu is quite another one, you can pick up onto it, or you can, and people do enjoy this. And this, I do find this. Maybe you pick what is hot at the moment. So, Daggerheart was this year's top one.
mm.
Um, that I would say, I find if you're playing a game that interests people, like something quick or action, or maybe you pick something classic. Let's say you pick D6 Star Wars, something that hasn't been played for a while, and you'll probably guarantee that people come along and play that. because it's based on a very popular IP. At the moment, what I'm picking up on, and I'm just reading this from what it is, because there was a certain K-pop animated Demon Hunter film, a lot of games masters at the moment are offering K-pop demon hunting homebrew games. So if you want to be doing that, that's great. That's something you could offer. Maybe you'll get interest, because what you're dealing with is the hangers on to it, who are looking to fill in that void, and you do want to offer the best. But as Aaron says, you're not going to get the big pool of it, because the people have they been there, they've done. The minute that probably about after lunchtime on the final day of a convention, people are just kind of now thinking, right, I've got to make my trip home and I've got to get all this, and I've just bought all this stuff that my wife's going to kill me. So how do I smuggle this back home and live to make it in work the next day? And that's the other thing. It's usually on a Sunday they've got work the next day as well. So a bulk of people will be leaving at that point. So you do have a challenge, because mentally in your mind, people have paid or they want to have a good experience. And you as a games master, no matter whether you're running from the first slot to the last slot, always want the players to have a great experience. I think that secretly we want to run the perfect game. But I'll tell you one thing, that is the unachievable goal for Games Master, because nobody runs the perfect game. We'll run a good game and a great game, but we could never run the perfect game.
So I made a whole bunch of notes, and I don't even know where to start. I guess my first kind of question, Aaron, for you is this sense of game and IP and buzz that is around before the convention, or maybe when people are signing up for the convention, that how does that influence you and eventually Bruce with your decision on what to run? Before you mentioned what you love to run, but then you're also choosing something for a group. How do you determine what is best to play? Is it something that is your strength, or are you wanting to go and try something new, like say Daggerheart, or push your boundaries, maybe like something like Daggerheart, where there are cards and different mechanisms?
So I'll talk generally, and I'll talk personally. Generally, just as a guide, for anybody, you can get yourself some marketing by picking something that's already popular, and you stand a better chance of getting a game, which is what Bruce has kind of already said with some of it. So you put D&D out there, you're more likely to get a game without having to put more effort in. The new hotness, Daggerheart, you're more likely to get a game. So if you know the rules to those and you just want to be a bit more comfortable with, am I going to get players? Just go for those. And if there's an IP as well, it doesn't have to be the rule set. So if there's an Alien TV series out at the moment, people will be looking to play Alien, and so on and so forth. So the IP works on that. Or Star Wars, as Bruce has said, it's already big and it's already popular. So generally speaking, if you're thinking, what am I going to run? How am I going to try and maximize my chance of getting a game? That is not a bad way to start. However, if I now go to what I do, both of the two options you gave me is what I do. I play what I really know well and what I really enjoy. If I don't enjoy the game, my players probably can't, or at least it'll be proportional. If I don't know how to play the game very well, I can't help my players, and it won't go well equally good. Okay, it's probably proportionally. So I want that comfort myself. I do not usually pick the big IPs and the big games, not because I don't like them, but I am old and I've come to that point where I like what I like. I like Coriolis. I want to play it. I like a bit of steampunk. I want to play it. And I can get away with that because there aren't too many people running it. I'm not clashing. If there were 10 Coriolis games, much as I love Coriolis, it's not popular enough to draw 10 tables. But if I'm the only one doing it, I can still get a game. But you can cheat on that, and we can talk about how you submit your game to get around that problem. But that's a different thing.
Yeah.
I think you can
we'll
still get a
speak about
game.
that next. Yeah, about submitting games.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I did want to say, I also do the other thing that you talk about. I also do want to challenge myself. So if I'm running 3 games, I will usually run 1 or 2 that I know really well, or at least I've had a chance to practice throughout the months beforehand. So I'm comfortable. I can just write a scenario and I know it's probably going to be okay. I can rely on my skill set. For the 3rd slot, I want to try something different. I've recently been experimenting and trying to learn more narrative games because that's not where I started. I do see value in them. I do see what they're trying to do. And I don't think they're completely for me, but they're something I want to know and be able to do better. I just want to improve my skill set. So I have to play something that's not within my wheelhouse. And narrative games, this new trend over the last several years has really expanded on that. And I can honestly say I have failed many, many times to produce a good narrative game. I'm just about getting there now. But the simple and brutal truth is I wouldn't have gotten there if I hadn't have tried it. So you do just have to, like anything else in life, you've just got to go for it. So I do like to do that with the convention and test something new. But I'm at that age now where I want to do the things that I want to do. So I probably won't rely on the IPs. I'll rely more on what we've just said. How can you get your game to be attractive anyway? I'll try and use that skill set instead.
Yeah. Bruce, how do you feel about these things? I mean, there's so much, of course, but choosing the game, how your familiarity, but also this newness and this IP stuff. One of the things I was thinking about as my brain farted was Aaron mentioned, and I will name it, Andor and Alien Earth. But if you're playing Star Wars, you may have to use a lot of imagination in order to get it to fit within the expectation, or else you may be playing something, like Empire Strikes Back, or something else other than the current meta, as it were, or with Alien Earth not having the resources available from, say, Free League or the license holder to be able to replicate something that's in the media, but not necessarily in the rules themselves.
So I've got to start with, when I started, I favored what was IP related. In fact, the first convention gaming was Ghostbusters, and I used the original Ghostbusters game rule set because I knew there was people playing it. So I knew the films, and it's pretty much does exactly what it says on the tin, and even the title will tell people what you're doing. What you're doing, you're busting ghosts. And there's no gorilla involved. We don't follow that version of it at all into it. But then I've actually found myself, because I'm learning who I am as a game master and everything, I really love the films, the TV, the media. And there are games that do capture that. Star Wars was actually one of the games I've got a lot of the D6 books when West End Games published a lot of it. I then I got into watching Hong Kong action films. So I picked up a game called Feng Shui, which captures that. And I can feel that. Oh, well, yeah. And
Yeah.
I've got a lot of that. It's things like I've gone into action movies. I love that sort of thing, and that's why I just wanted to offer into it because the games had to have a good fast flow system. And lately, I've actually learning who I am as a game master and what players enjoy when I'm running games. And I'm finding I'm moving a slightly less from action and into investigation, which touches something I never thought I would bring to it. But I used to love reading, and I'm sure a lot of people did, Sherlock Holmes. Investigation, Miss Marple, we had on the TV, we had
Mm,
Poirot with David Suchet, fantastic. And now I'm offering a lot of investigation style games with a little twist. So Rivers of London, it's a police procedural investigation, but there's magic and fairies
mm,
and it's modern day. Or I'm running Blade Runner, which I tend to run it like a police procedural. So you
mm,
are got a bit of moral dilemma, but you are a police unit, you're investigating. There's a crime in a dystopian world. What happened? What's going on? And players seem to enjoy that at the moment. They like
mm.
the intrigue, they like the mystery, and I'm learning myself, how can I make these more challenging? In fact, my favorite thing, I was at work one day, he says, what are you doing? He says, oh, I'm just trying to work out how to kill somebody in space. It's a great conversation over there instead, because I'm going to run a game where there's a dead body in space. So I'm trying to work out how do the players solve this and what do they need to do to make it. So it's great to challenge and give them that. And sometimes when you're running these games, you might have thought of something. Players will still surprise you with it. The number of times I've run Blade Runner and players go, well, actually, we should do this because of it. I'm like, okay, that's a great idea. I'll let you think about it because I have not read anything out and I need to make something up in about five, 10
Yeah.
minutes. But I do, but it's a thing you don't want to rob them, which we haven't tackled yet, called player agency. But
Mm,
it is something that's great, and I'm learning how to handle it because as a games master, you do need to prepare and be back on to that and challenge onto that side of it from it. And that's something I'm enjoying as I'm learning as I go. But I'm also learning how to do stuff. Initially, what I would thought, hey, it'll be games, we'll have a good laugh and everything. And I have realized I'm actually not as funny as I like to think I am. So let's just go and have a good old murder or a nice stolen item instead.
I've just come from I literally just got on with you both, and on Tuesdays and Wednesdays whenever I'm doing anything online, whether live or recorded like this, I've coming from playing and doing an after school program with kids, which is extremely rewarding. uh, I am a firm believer that kids need to have adult interaction, supervised adult interaction that is not with a teacher or a parent, where they're able to learn kind of skills that
Mm,
are taken away by just living on a screen. And so it's
mm,
wonderful to play around the table, but the zigzaggy, bizarre ways that in one group, the Tuesday group, where they're 11 and 12, I never thought I'd be working with that age group, but they were amazing. And then today with uh, 12 to 13-year-olds, and then on the weekend I'm going to have 14 to 15-year-olds, that uh, the way that they're thinking is so open to they come up. I mean, I don't need to prepare a lot other than knowing the game mechanics because they already are writing stories before I even have a chance to give them the mystery. And like you, Bruce, I'm tending to find myself moving away from the dungeon crawl and the constant kind of mob fights or monster, the monster of the day fights, to being um, uh, more thoughtful. And I'm not sure if that's a narrative influence. It may well be, but certainly some of the games that have come out are leading us into a way of thinking that was not as evident back, say, even 20 years
mm,
ago, where we were still either hex crawling or dungeon delving. So I like this idea of being able to, and of course, as a player, I love player agency. And as a GM, I love it as well. But when you're in a con, there are certain limits, aren't there? So let's go there first. And then I want to ask you about how do you actually register or become a GM? Like, do you just show up or something? So let's talk about this agency and time constraints with the players at the table. And I guess, Aaron?
So,
unless you want to pass it off to...
No, that's fine. I should take some of the lifting myself. Yeah, they're two very different things, although obviously everything's going to be related. But okay, so agency first. There are certain games that I wouldn't want to run as a one-shot game because the burden is too high on everybody. So you don't want to run a total sandbox game, which is where you can do anything you want and there's no defined endpoint and it's just completely open. Actually, that does link into timing as well, actually. There you go, they are related.
Yeah.
You also have the complete opposite of that, which is railroading, where you're here, you have to do this. This is the problem, you must solve it. Because players notice that and they don't necessarily find it so satisfying. But equally, it depends on the game you're running because it isn't a one-dimensional problem. There's multi-dimensions. So when you're selling your game, you've got to know what it is that you're advertising and capitalize on it. So if you are running a D&D game, old school, that is about satisfying tactical combat, then you can afford to railroad the plot because people are there to use their skills in a clever way and show that they can get through these combats, and they're going to enjoy that more tactical, more board gaming element. So you can allow yourself more into railroading. If you're going to go in full-on investigation, Sherlock Holmes, if you try and railroad them, there is one clue in the room, please roll to discover it. It's going to be really boring. So you're going to have to open yourself up to more sandbox. You're going to have to open them up to allowing players to investigate whatever they want. But then you've got the opposite problem. There are 100 things in the room and they spend the entire 4 hours slowly going through every single item. Oh my God, no, you need some way of moving them off that. So I would say know what your game is and what you're trying to get from it. Even with the investigation games, you want to be directing people's attention to what it is they're trying to do. So if it is a social deduction game, you don't worry about items. There are 3 people. They are represented by 3 potential themes or emotions, and you focus people on that. Do not spend a long time describing the curtains because you'll draw people's attention to the curtains and you don't want it there. You want it on 1, 2, 3 people. I don't care what the room is. Don't waste your time explaining it to them. So you have to take that control. Where is the right amount of control between total sandbox and total railroad? So first of all, it's what does your game want? But then second of all, how long have you got? And it's almost the same as quite a lot of problems in life. You solve the problem before it starts is always the best. So what is it about directing people's attention? If you want them to get through something in an hour, don't give them 10 things to deal with. But if you're not railroading, you've got to give them more than 1. So you make a judgment on where it is and also what type of thing is it that you want them to deal with. Yeah, if it's D&D, you know they're there for tactical combat. But if you've got social deduction, are you trying to show off the background? Are you trying to get them to solve riddles? Just try and, when you're setting the encounter, to draw people's attention to what you want rather than just trying to freeform everything. Don't try and be Matt Mercer and do a big evocative thing where you get lost in something else. No, if your game is about doing funny voices, then totally do that, because that's why everybody's here. But if it's not, don't burden yourself. Focus it to what your game wants. And then timing wise, I think that helps you deal with that a little bit, because you've probably set an amount of time that you think is an average for your basics, my opening scene, my closing scene, and you can play tricks with your plot to help you handle that. What if they do spend 50% extra time than I thought on the opening scene? Well, if your opening and closing scene are separated by between 3 and 5 encounters, well, you've already agreed in your own planning that you can vary the number, and that's what you're trying to do. Right, I've only got time for 3, I'll cut 2 of them. But if I need, because they're getting through it really quickly, I've prepared 5. So maybe I do need all 5. And it's different also for every single group, because as you say, you don't know who's going to sit down, and everybody is going to go through it differently. So my advice would be, first of all, figure out what exactly it is you're trying to do with your game and stick to it. And then second of all, find ways that you can be flexible with your time such that you can add in and cut depending on how it goes at the table. There's limits to it, but it usually works.
Bruce, what do you think?
So I agree. So one of the tricks I would certainly do, especially like a venture one, is I would look at how much time I've got to run the game in that slot, because it can vary. It could be 4 hours, it could be 3 hours, and I might be running the game. I ran it a different convention for a 4-hour slot, and now I'm in the 3-hour slot, and I've got to chop that down. And the key thing I want in the adventure, when they're sitting at the table, I want them to have the 3 acts: the beginning, the middle, and the end. So they want to get the beginning, open up to what the problem is. The middle is, right, what's going on? What do we think is going on? And then, the conclusion. We accuse the murderer in the room. It's the big monster who's ready to eat parrots, or for whatever reason. Or it's the inevitable betrayal, because you've done what we call a player versus player game, and everybody starts revealing their secret agendas and says, "No, I'm going to accuse you." At that point, you can time it in a way. I would say don't time it exactly to the slot. Take about a slice off. Let's say 30 minutes off. So my 3-hour game is going to be a 2.5 hour. I've got to compress this in. I've got to compress this 4-hour into 3.5 hours, because you want to give yourself a little off. Maybe something doesn't go according to plan, or as you say, you need to take a break or something reason for it. So don't time it from exactly that whole slot. Time it for less. And what you can do, one of the tricks that we use at the table when we do this, you've got a mobile. Most people have a mobile phone. I don't want to say everybody does, but or you've got something you can do, an alarm clock. You might even have a watch. You can just check. There might be a clock on the wall. You can check the time and just say, right, okay, they're here. I need to get them to the end. So they're still wasting the time for it. We need to move on. And one of the other tricks is, and I'm going to quote from Mike Mason when I heard him do a talk, and it's actually been said from Lynn Hardy as well from Chaosium. Make your clues, make whatever they need to get to that end. Make sure you've got movable stuff and reduce the red herrings. Because there's a great story that Mike Mason's mentioned, that he gave them a map and he realized there was a blank spot on the map. So he thought, look, I'll just put a well on that, just because it looks like a part of the thing. But the well had nothing to do with his adventure campaign. So what did the players do when they saw the well? They went and explored the well. He's got like, I got nothing from this.
Well, that's like the curtain that Aaron was saying, right? You describe the curtain and automatically everybody's focus goes to the curtain.
Yeah. You give them the quote. If people start wasting the time, I'm going to show the great example I heard, which I do always find it's an awful one I've read in some social stuff, is you're at a bar. There's a tall, big barbarian making very loud noises. Obviously, the GM wants them to talk to the barbarian. And there's, oh well, I'm going to talk to one of the other patrons. This character, what is it? And the chair's like, it's a goblin. His name's Bob. And then they're going to talk to Bob, the goblin,
Mm.
because they've taken over. You just say, well, look, they're not interested, or you're not going to. I actually will just do a thing for press for time. I'll just say, they're not interested. Don't even waste your time because I'm not going to get to you in that scene because we need to get to this scene. That can be something you can do, but it does rob a little bit of agency from it. But you are trying to keep the plot moving to a point. And it is a little railroady, but that is one way you can handle it.
Do you think the players going into a convention game understand that it's not going to be the same as campaign play? Do you think that generally the con player has a certain amount of experience so that they're aware of say your job, as it were, in terms of the entertainment factor and the timing factor?
I'm going to say it varies depending on it. There is a thing about, because we're talking about when players go up to the game, and there's two groups of players. In fact, if you see a lot of tickets being bought, because you might be able to watch in advance, you go, oh my goodness, 5 tickets being sold from a 6-player game. Great. If they happen at once, you've got an indication that's a group that each know each other. For it. So they'll be there as a group and they're there for a social from that. And they might actually think that all GMs, like they've been running, are in that mentality. Then you might get the odd people that might just drop in. And what I tend to find is they're the people curious about the game. Maybe they've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for so long, but they've been wanting to explore the hobby a little bit more and go, well, hang on, what is this Call of Cthulhu thing? I did a little 15-minute taster, but it didn't really tell me what the game is. I want to know more. So you'll find that goes into it. So sometimes you will counter the challenge that many of them, like if you've got somebody who's played Dungeons and Dragons and then go into what I call like the narrative style. So Powered by the Apocalypse type games are quite a common narrative themed ones. That can really be a challenge to their mindset because they're thinking, okay, you use a GM and tell me what I need to do. I mean, I've done this thing. You need to tell me what the consequence is. Whereas the narrative is, I'm advancing the plot into it, and that's quite a challenge going into it.
Definitely.
Well, and I guess that there's a lot of, improvisation that needs to be applied when you're playing narrative games. Just by their very nature. And so I guess that it would require a more experience. I would say that it's probably just as an imagining that it's harder to run a purely narrative game at a convention where there are so many variables, as opposed to something that may not be per se a railroad. And I do find that many starter games or games that are part of, say, a starter set or the back of the book type games that are ordinarily the ones that are played to introduce are much more railroady than, say, something that you find on drive-through or stuff like that. I wanted to ask about, because I see that time is a moving, I wanted to ask about, well, how do you kind of get your games that you're interested in, that you've established, how do you get those ones out advertised? How do you approach the con to say, oh, I want to play Dragonbane, or I want to play the Cosmere Stormbringer game. What do I do? Bruce.
Okay, so I was hoping to avoid that. But what do I bring to the
You
game?
can always
So
call a friend and pass to
That's
Aaron.
true. Yeah, good.
no, let's go. Like I said, I've got a little cheat. I will pick an IP thing. But I'm confident that they'll get people going. But lately, I'm starting to try and do things like there's a bit of a laugh. Look at what I've got on my shelf and see if I can get that to the table and see if there is interest from it. So I did offer. I'm going to be trying to do one like that uses a similar system that I ran for Chaosium because I think it works quite well for an investigative. I don't think it's the only one out there. But I, the reason I've chosen that system then compared to another game one, which would be the step die one from Blade Runner, is there are similarities with that. So it's not a well-known IP. Star Cops is the name of the game. I'm going to run it. So it's something I've created. It's not an official license. It's unofficial. Yes, I'm inspired by a very old TV series and recent audio dramas from it that are based on this universe, but it's not well known. I know it's not well known, and I've got to try and sell this concept to the game to people. So I have got to put one the title, but my cheat is also the game system. Hey, it's the BRP. You don't know what BRP is? Well, maybe you've heard of Call of Cthulhu. So it's similar to that. Maybe you played Rivers of London. It's similar to that. And then you've got to write a sort of snazzy, catchy blurb. So you're going to write something that might be popular. So I'm writing about, hey, you're going to be a police investigation. They need to call that the universe is expanding. But it's getting quite dangerous out there, and we need to get law enforcement out there and promote the idea of policing in space. So that's sort of the thing. And then you can probably mention this is based on this, and then you can go to as you think. However, I just touched on it earlier as well. You might play what's popular in media, but there's a lot of games out there. So I'm starting to see at the moment a lot of GMs are going, hey, we're going to play whatever random, like your BTS or whatever the latest name is, snazzy dance crew. And then your description is it's whatever system because maybe people don't reason the system. But then you say, hey, you're a bunch of K-pop bands. You're popular. You're famous. But behind the late night, there's these things, and your fans are going crazy. If only you could do something. But wait, you can because you're not just a gamer. You are this snazzy demon hunter. And people go, oh, I watched that on this popular thing, and that sounds like fun. Even if you don't know the system or anything.
Well, what is this bloody gate? What is this show that you're talking about? I don't know the show.
You don't know K-pop Demon Hunters?
K-pop Demon Hunters has been very
popular. A Netflix sensation. Google it. Just Google it.
And it's got 3 singles in the top 10.
Look! In Canada, being someone who's in their 60s now, I like Aaron, but older. Understand that my time has passed, and I'm still living back in the 2000s. I don't realize that was 20 years ago. That was just yesterday. Okay, so now I know what this game is. So I'm going to move it over to Aaron because Aaron spoke previously to us about, and I believe that you called it the art of writing a synopsis of a game, because as I understand it, you'll send something into the con through through some sort of kind of form, and you'll do the title, you'll do an explanation of the system, and then you'll do kind of a précis of what it is. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
So I'm going to say the word burden, although I don't really mean it that seriously, but the burden on your submission is now a lot higher now than it used to be. You used to submit a game with a name, a system, and a bit of a blurb, and that was it. Whereas the modern gamer is expecting a full conversation on lines and veils and everything, and you cannot do that in a convention, but there's still an expectation. So you have, when you go to a convention, usually a call for submissions, and that call for submissions has to be able to deal with this problem. So usually you'll see on social media, or maybe you're on an email mailing list, I want GMs for my con, go for it. Here's the form, and you fill it out, Google form. And you do all the things you would normally do on that form. You'd fill out your name, a title for the game, and you still have to describe that game, but you'd also have to do your session 0 usually on that form as well. Now, you can't get agreement, you just have to post it. So the session 0 agreement is, look at what I've given you, and if you're okay with that, please sign up. So you can't have a discussion. You don't sit down at the table and discuss it, and you'd lose time to that. Hopefully, even things like X cards, they're on the table and people already know them. So you don't really want to lose time to something people generally know, and hopefully they've read the submission form and they know this game has X, Y, and Z in it. If you don't like that, please don't sign up. But I've warned you up front. This is what to expect. It is a horror game.
Don't try to change the game at the table when you've already signed up for what it explicitly says that it is.
Because that would be unfair on the other people that have signed up to the game as well. They've all joined based on this expectation, and it should be agreed that you've all wanted that when you turn up. Now, obviously, you have to account for surprises. You didn't mention this in your submission sheet, therefore I get to X card it. Well, that's fine, it's a surprise. But hopefully you know, if you're going for a horror game, that there are going to be the equivalent of jump scares. If you think it's unlikely to be assumed, then you've usually got a box to write it in. There will be spiders. If you don't want that, please turn away. So you fill out your full session 0 data on your submission form, and then you get a chance with a free text box to actually describe your game as well. And I don't think enough people make use of that, because it's fine to say there will be spiders, but that doesn't tell you what the game's going to be. Now, if you are playing D&D or Daggerheart or something that's obvious, I've seen GMs get away with one sentence to describe their game, and they get players anyway. And I don't know if they think it's cool or if they're lazy or whatever it is. But if your game is that already popular by IP or system, then you can cheat. You will fight orcs. Brilliant. Okay, well, I came here to play D&D, so I'm okay anyway. But imagine you'd put that on something that was not well known. You will fight orcs. You're like, okay, I could do that in D&D. I'm going to turn away.
Oh, okay.
So your description has to be able to sell your game if it can't sell itself. Now, I think you should make more of it anyway. Even if you're playing D&D, yeah, well, there's 50 D&D games, and only 45 of them might run. So I think you're still in competition for players. So I think you should still make use of that box more. And my suggestion would be, again, identify your hooks. What is it that people are going to be sitting down and playing, and what is it that they won't automatically appreciate? So if they're playing in a modern day game, you don't need to describe New York to them because they know New York. You can afford to just cheat about it being a modern day game and go on about what the players are actually going to be doing. But yeah, you want to focus on your hooks. You don't want to spend too long doing it, but equally, if you don't spend enough time, they might miss the point. So there is a skill in picking the right amount of words. It's usually write the fewest number of words you can to still get across your point. You are being a little bit of a salesperson. You are being a little bit like the marketing team at your job. And that's a shame to think that the burden is on you to do that. But amusingly, ChatGPT exists.
Yeah,
so
I was just about to mention,
I personally would practice it. I would actually just practice it, get feedback, ask your friends, and practice it like a skill. However, you can learn from ChatGPT these days. Please emphasize this. Please do that. But you've still got to put in the prompts. So still, what is your game? Is it about an investigation game? Then you've got to sell that. You've got to somehow get across clues. You don't have to write flowery text. You can do it in bullet points.
Mm,
Because as long as you hit people with something they're interested in, it's fine. So I wouldn't take the burden of thinking, oh, I can't write a novel. Don't.
mm,
Get in what you think is important. What are people going to be doing? Are they going to be playing a social game? Is there lots of talking? Get that across. Is it a bucket of dice game? Then convince them that it is a strategic game. They
mm.
are going to be playing like a war game. Get that in there somehow. If you want to do text, brilliant. If you just want to describe it, fine. But focus on those hooks. Let people know what it's going to feel like to be at the table. How are you going to role play? And what is the plot that they're going to be involved in so they know it's interesting to them. Focus on those two. So I don't want a full description of the system, but what's the system like? Is it a lot of dice rolling? Is it more talking?
Yeah.
Don't give the whole plot, but give them the hook. Imagine you're trying to get somebody to buy your film. Yeah, what is it about that's interesting? Is it the haunted manor that you're going to have to go into? Let people, but don't tell them what the story is about what's haunting. You don't need to, but you've got to give them that trigger. So focus on those two things. What's it going to like to play the game? And what is the story of the game as efficiently as you can?
Thank you, Aaron. Bruce, do you have anything to add to that on reflection?
No, I mean, I agree with it. I mean, you've got genres that you can tag in, trigger and hope. So an example might be for Alien. I put in science fiction. I wouldn't say hard science, but then I'd say horror, and then I put in brackets because horror could be multi-genre, and then I'd say body horror, or
Sure.
if it's called Cthulhu, you might have cosmic horror or mental anguish. So you can use these things to give them a heads up. Look, this is going to be in. So I've ran the Rivers of London game, which is police investigation, and actually when I've ran this year, it says, look, child in peril. A lot of people might feel, well, that's quite a bit. This is a modern day game. You're talking about a child. And when you read the description, you are going to a family's house in that synopsis that I put down, and you're going to be investigating a family which the social workers have put on. So you're thinking domestic abuse, and that can be a real world problem for maybe some players because maybe they are aware of an incident or something. I mean, you've given them at least a heads up from
Yes.
it. And as Aaron said, the most common thing you will have is an X card into it. And the way I would do is you do practice what is the hook to sell your game. So I'm thinking about next year's Rivers of London game, and I've got one titled "The Return of Hamish McClure." And okay, that's the title that I've called the Avenger. And in the blurb, I've said it's 2017. And your team, your Falcon team, has been asked to come to this branch in Edinburgh for it because a person who's reported missing has returned back. And you're thinking, well, wait, this is good news, surely. But here's the snag. Hamish McClure disappeared in 1994, and he's not aged one day. So then you've got a mystery and a hook for them. And then you've got underneath genre police procedural urban fantasy based on novels of Ben Arovich and the world onto it. And then the players know what they're getting into. They know exactly what they're going to walk into. They says they're going to walk in, they're going to meet, they've already got the name of the first person, and they've got a mystery in their hands they've got to solve. They know exactly what this game's going to be about from the start. Well, how it's going to start. How it ends depends on what the players do and then what they find.
That's
And
great.
that's the way to do it.
I mean, I hear on other podcasts, and of course, I'm a consumer of podcasts, just like a good number of people are. Watching people say, "Oh, there's so much to discuss," but there really is. I mean, because we're tying in GMing and playing are kind of literally two sides of the same coin. I mean, we're in it together. We enjoy the hobby. Some enjoy providing the environment and being the referee, as it were, or the game master, or whatever the name is for that particular game. But there's also this symbiotic relationship that you have. And it also goes into the mechanics as well, because we're talking about game design in a lot of respects as well, and what attracts people, what are people interested in. And as Bruce was speaking, I was thinking, if I were to write something for a game, I'd want to kind of get some system, maybe BRP, and use some of the concepts that were in Alien Earth, where, you know, spoilers, stop now. That a child or a teen is now into another type of body, which is older. How do you cope? And so using those type of leverages, or those type of springboards, with different types of games. So there's so many different things and aspects that we could go on talking about, but I see that our time is running short. I did write down exhausted people, and I think that this kind of ties into something that there's our own level of exhaustion. I know that there's times when I'm really tired, and whether it's neurodivergence on my part, or whether it's just the situation of the room, or maybe the lights and stuff. As I'm exhausted, I tend to be a little more irritable than I normally am. And that can affect being a GM. I've witnessed it before as a GM in myself, and I've witnessed it in others, but also in players. The exhaustion of being on, say, a Sunday afternoon and wanting to desperately play, but then being so exhausted that you find that you're not yourself. What advice would you give to either GMs or players that when it's been a long Saturday, or you've been up early in the morning on Saturday morning, you've taken the train, you've gone to the con or the expo, and you just have a splitting headache, you've taken your Tylenol, you want to play, you're excited, but you're just exhausted. What advice would you give? Like, how do you cope with those type of issues?
So for myself, unfortunately, I think a lot of it comes back to solve the problem before it starts. So if you think that's going to happen to you as a GM, maybe you shouldn't have stayed up till 3 a.m. playing the game. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of that. I think you've got to get ahead of it. But what if you do get surprised? So, okay, let's say you do get surprised by something. Like you say, the lights in the room just give you that migraine. I think with the GM side, I'm going to struggle to come up with anything other than hopefully your own coping mechanisms.
Yes.
If you cannot do it, then you've got a responsibility to go to the con and say, I'm really sorry, I can't run. And I guess they just have to have a way of dealing with that, games on demand and so on. But if you can run, hopefully you know your own body well enough that you can provide yourself your own individual ways to cope. If it's your players, though, then I think you do have options. And I would say weirdly, it's the same as anything else. Problem players, they don't get the plot. You've unfortunately written yourself into a corner without realizing it, and your playtest didn't reveal it. Your improvisational skills are just so important to hone. Just constantly hone them. Give yourself tests. Try and do it. Whenever it comes up, don't shy away from it. Just go for it. It will fail a few times before you practice it, and you have to be okay with that failure. You have to be okay with getting it wrong and thinking, right, I won't do that again. Or, oh, I was so close. I just need a bit more of this. And if you can reflect back on that, your improvisational skills will improve, because you want to just be able to improvise down. Is everybody tired? Reduce the complexity. Is everybody exhausted and can't think? clearly, and they don't want to do a big moral debate. Well, don't give them that then. Give them a more simple problem to deal with. The child is in danger. Usually everybody tries to save the child. So where previously you had the child was actually possessed by the demon, and it's, well, yeah, but I know, but if we let it go, it'll do damage. I know, but it's just a child. No, don't do that. The demon hasn't possessed the child yet. The game suddenly changes to you just simply save the child. So simplify, remove things, read the table to know what they want, and if they just want it to be easier because they can't cope, then your improvisational skills need to be able to just deal with that, and you'll get used to solving lots of different problems. But it'd be the same thing as if two players are falling out.
Yeah.
Can you remove the problem that they're falling out over? Can you just take that away from the game? Each time it would be improvising away the issue.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. Bruce, you may remember why I just put my hand over my eyes and looked in shame. Do you remember that?
Well, no, it's I can probably not vaguely remember, but you have. It's like, yes, we maybe you should have done something else in the adventure, but you thought it was probably a good idea at the time.
I thought it was a great idea at the time. I'm a very bad priest, I think, and because my characters always end up being the worst human beings possible. I was playing in a game of Cthulhu, and we were in Harlem, and we ended up going to Vermont, or kind of the northern area of New England, and there were two children who were possessed. One seemed to be fine. The other one was definitely, in my mind, too far gone. So I corrected the problem in a way that may have been a bit hasty, and and so I did not save the child. I saved the other child though. But yeah, I think that
you don't have to be a priest at the table if you are one in real life. It's not a requirement.
That's right. It's not a requirement. Though I do remember thinking to myself, yeah, I probably should have rethought that. Anyway,
I would suggest though, if you are playing with a lot of children who you are trying to teach skills of life,
no,
maybe reconsider it then.
But that's why I GM and don't play with the kids.
That's fair enough.
I think good. And there's no last call with the kids. Last bus maybe, but not last call. Bruce, final word.
So capturing that energy. So trying to start the phone beforehand, the easiest way for GM is pace yourself. And if you're starting off, because this is the whole idea, we've got to go back to the original question, is there. Do not sign up for every single slot in GM in every slot. My advice to you, especially, don't do every single slot in a single day.
Okay.
Being a games master is mentally and physically exhausting. You're at that table and you're engaging with a lot of people, and you're doing that every time. If you're sitting with and you're having to go for the cans of energy drinks, that was my first attempted answer. I was going to say, how do you deal with energy problem? Buy everybody around them energy drinks. That's always your problem. But the reality is that's not a good sign. So what you really want is a way to build yourself up and do it. You want to do more. But as Ving Rhames says to Bruce Willis in Pulp Fiction, that's pride. I'm going to paraphrase it, messing with you. that is really what it is. You've got to pace yourself, and you build up that resilience as you go. I've made that mistake. I can tell you, I've gone in and I've felt tired, and I've done exactly from it. Players recognize it, and I recognize it myself. And you walk away because you know yourself. You did not bring what I traditionally called that great game.
Yeah.
And you will feel bad about it. And that adds to the mental anguish. It doesn't mean you say that you should give up. but you are going to dwell on it. From it. So pace yourself. If you're starting off, my advice is do one slot. Um, if you're so keen, because maybe you get the entry ticket, you've got to do three slots. They just and it's over 3 days. Then do three slots each day. Do one slot on Friday, do one slot on Saturday, and do one slot on Sunday. You could probably get away with getting an afternoon slot on a Sunday by that point.
So thank you. And I guess the last quick fire question would be in a sentence. I'll start with Bruce and end with Aaron. Is there a difference between GMing at a con and GMing at, say, your friendly local game store, or not necessarily with your friends, but in a different capacity than, say, at a con?
I'm going to say probably yes, because there's every convention has a unique type of player, but at a store you're getting a different type. Because the atmosphere is more relaxed or
Okay.
different to each side.
Aaron?
Yeah,
For-
I agree.
for you.
It's they're cousins. They are the same. They're related. They're the same sort of thing. But the convention is just everything much more extreme. A wider possibility of players, a wider possibility of environments that you have to cope with. So you could learn in the game shop, build your skills, and then you'd be able to cope with the greater magnitude of the convention, although you'd find that everything was going in the same direction.
Awesome. Thank you both very, very much for your patience and your time. This has been actually really good, and we've spoken before, and there literally is new stuff constantly that I'm absorbing, and I'm actually employing with the after school program that I do. And as a player, I'm realizing more about, and as a player, I'm online all the time. I'm realizing more what I like to do and what I don't like to do, and what I need to do to push my boundaries, and what are things that I'm so comfortable with that maybe I'm becoming complacent with some games or some systems where I should be rethinking or looking back. And one of the things that I want to talk about on my channel at some point is recapturing that youthful feel, and moving away from the cynicism that sometimes can get into us as we get older, as we look at games, analyze games, think about the new, the cult of the new, as it were, but realizing some merit and stuff like that. So thank you both very, very much. I hope that we'll get a chance to speak again soon. But for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you again sometime.